You're listening to part 2 of a Barefoot Lawyer Reports podcast on worsening religious restrictions in China, featuring founder and president of China Aid, Bob Fu. To listen to part 1, please check the link in the description.
So, Bob, you mentioned that, this app and this data that has to be submitted to go to church is part of other electronic or digital or internet things that the CCP is doing. Do you want to mention any of those? It's another important part of their crackdown on freedom, particularly of religious people. And they're doing it with, like you said, I think you mentioned AI, artificial intelligence, and cameras all over the place. And any of those things you'd like to mention, Bob, to give the listener a sense of the kind of magnitude of what's going on?
Yes, Bill. This program, this experiment with this smart religion app, essentially is a part of the component of Chinese Communist Party's social credit system to this 1.4 billion people. Especially, if you're a Christian, your social credit will be low, so it will impact your daily life, from like traveling, purchasing a train ticket, or forbidding to no-fly zone. No-fly list. Forbidding you from flying, or and now the Communist Party's digital surveillance technology has already impacted the world. They have installed, of course, in all the 360 plus concentration camps in the East Turkestan, Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, holding over 1 million people. We have rescued those victims, from Christians, Muslims alike. They told us that these surveillance cameras are everywhere, and they are exporting that now to the U.S., to Europe, and now every Chinese citizen has at least 2 these face recognition cameras following them every day. From their home up to the workplace, on the street. And so we know this because I have friends, Christian friends, who went back to China from the United States, and one day tried to recharge his subway ticket in Beijing. All of a sudden, he couldn't recharge it. And he went to the subway police and asked him why. And after scanning of his ID, the police said, well, have you committed any crime? Are you, he said, no, I didn't committed any crime, but he knew because he's a Christian and he's a Christian leader, and he came back from the United States. So, this is a vastly a network of surveillance system that controls you every move. So the whole China basically become a digital prison. Of course, if you are found like a former offender of the political crime, the Communist Party accused of you as instigating of the subversion of state power, or like Chen Guangcheng's accused the crime of blocking traffic, destabilizing the social stability, or endangering the national security of the Article 300 of our criminal law. And or if you were found in violation of religious law in different parts of China, then you are basically destined to be on the system, and you will be like during the COVID-19 time, the app will follow you everywhere. and your color, if your color tend to from green to yellow or worse to red, then you do not have time. Have freedom to move, let alone to freedom of speech or practice your faith. So this is a total violation of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and of course, Chinese own constitution.
Yes.
They even said that the citizens of China have freedom of religious belief.
I wanted to mention that, in fact, Chen Guangcheng has just had an article in the Wall Street Journal about, I don't know, a week or 10 days ago, about how, although there are laws in China, the Communist Party doesn't have to follow the law. So there is no rule of law in China. I want everybody listening, to get the big picture here. There is, and this crackdown, particularly in Hainan province and on the Christians, but it's part of a larger crackdown on Christians throughout China and of all religions throughout China, because religious freedom is seen as the enemy of the Chinese Communist Party. And as Bob was saying, the Chinese Communist Party is incredibly sophisticated, and they're, in terms of their surveillance, they are increasing and finding more and more ways, even aided by the COVID issues, to put in things that seem to be health related, but in fact are mainly there to control people and to limit freedom. So it reminds us of what Chen Guangcheng said at the Republican National Convention, that the CCP is the enemy of the human race, because they are exporting their totalitarian measures throughout the world to other totalitarian countries. So, Bob, anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this up?
Yes, Bill, I think you said it's very correctly. This Communist Party's totalitarian tyranny is not only a threat to the 1.4 billion Chinese people's fundamental universal rights, but also the threat to the whole world. I mean, look at what's happening for those political dissidents and even Chinese students who are studying in the university campuses, like a Catholic University, like a Purdue University, like a Harvard and UCLA. So there are a number of cases showing the Chinese Communist Party using this transnational repression tactics, from intimidating to harassment and even threatening. I mean, we know from both the university, Purdue University in Indiana and the University of Florida, Chinese students were being harassed and threatened by the Chinese Communist Party's installed other student associations in the campus for simply attending a rally for Tibet, a commemoration of the Tiananmen massacre in Tiananmen Square. And students from Purdue who was not only himself was threatened, and his parents were both arrested, after he attended a commemoration event for the Tiananmen Square massacre. And in another article recently shows all the Chinese students studying overseas, before they come here, they have to now sign a kind of a volunteer MOU with the state security, basically vowed they would implement the Chinese national security law in the United States and in Europe, wherever they are. So essentially, they are compelled to be their spies. So this shows, the how brutal the Chinese Communist Party is becoming, is a cancer to our civilization. and is an FBI director and the director of intelligence, national intelligence, recently testified before the Senate, said, the Communist Party has become the number one threat, existential threat to our freedom and our way of life and our national security. So I just want to remind the listeners of this the podcast, really be vigilant and also and pray for China, as we are men of faith, that these dictators, may God have mercy on their hearts, soften their hearts, and shed the eternal light upon their evil behavior, and so that they can change the behavior and rule according to the righteousness and justice from God. And we also need to hold those perpetrators, those instigators of those evil acts and the laws accountable. They need to be put under sanction under the Global Human Rights Magnitsky Act. So these are the things, Bill, I want to to finish with this. This podcast. Thank you.
No, thank you, Bob. And I would say to all the listeners, this may seem a surprise to you, but one of the things you can do to help is to share this podcast. Share it with people who don't know about China and the CCP and don't understand the threat it poses to its own people, to religious freedom, and to the whole world. And again, you can go to our website, learn more about the Barefoot Lawyer podcast, learn more about Chen Guangcheng, the Barefoot Lawyer himself, and that's catholic.edu/CHR. And on behalf of the center, we want to really thank Bob Fu, president of China Aid, who is a great warrior for freedom in China. Thank you for joining us, Bob.